Do you mind sharing your wife's side hustles? I'm curious what she's got going on.
So yeah, no, that's fine. So I don't even remember how she. Well, initially, I guess we'll start with the first one chronologically. She cuts hair.
Okay.
So she's a hairstylist. She did that. That was her kind of career, and then I gradually retired her. Um, so she did that, but she still does it for anybody that's interested, basically, that's willing to drive up here.
Sure.
So she kept some of her normal clients. She does some people just in the community. So that works out pretty well. Um, Obviously, um, it's not quite as conducive with children running around, but it kind of helps that I work from home, so I can be a little flexible about that. You know, if she needs some help for 10 minutes or whatever, I can wander out there and help. So that was the first one. That was the first thing she did, and it went from being a full time thing to a side hustle just after we moved up here, basically. And the second thing she does is she resells clothing. So
Oh
she goes
wow.
to thrift shops. What is the place? It's a Goodwill. They call it the bins. Basically, it's all the stuff that
Hmm.
Goodwill hasn't sold. They throw it in a giant bin, and people descend upon this bin. Like every 30 minutes, they bring out a new bin, and people just descend upon this bin like locusts, trying to search for cool stuff. And my wife is apparently one of those locusts because she descends upon it and grabs stuff out of it. And they sell it. I want to say they sell it by the pound. So basically, you just fill a bag with stuff, and so you could end up spending $10 and have $1,000 worth of stuff in your bag.
Sure.
So that's how it started. But then she started buying clothing from a pallet by the pallet. So it's stuff
Hmm.
from these stores. I don't even know really how they end up with it, but I mean, we'll end up with some crazy stuff in the very first pallet she bought. It had just a bunch of clothes, but then some random packs of Yu-Gi-Oh cards that ended up paying for the pallet all by themselves.
What?
Yeah, I mean, there was like
Huh.
a super rare pack, foil pack or something. Um, so I mean, just some crazy stuff like that's happened. I ended up with a brand new pair of Red Wing boots. Well, I say they're brand new. Apparently, they had gone to a Red Wing store and been restored, completely restored, and then the person never picked them up. So I
Huh.
got these sweet Red Wing boots. They're exactly my size, $400 pair of boots. And like when we did the math, it was like it
Whoa.
cost us $1 basically for the boots. Um, so yeah, I get some cool stuff that
That
way. But
is cool. What are
so
the
then she just resells
chances?
the rest. So, and it's actually it's really really cool because we have a big van that'll fit a pallet or two in the back. Um, and we have my shop that she can do the sorting in, and I even have a tractor with pallet forks. So it really worked out really well for living out here because obviously none of those things would have been the case if we were still living
Right?
in the city. So it ended up kind of being pretty much the perfect timing wise for her to get into that. And then it's not asset like there's not really a big investment involved. So it really fell at the right time for us
So
because
like what's an average pallet cost?
all it depends on. So you can see some of the stuff at the top. Obviously, you can't go through item by item. You don't have enough time. But
Oh,
she's bought.
she's physically there at
Yeah.
wherever this
So
warehouse
there's a
is.
place in
Okay.
Kansas City that does this, but there's actually a couple places that do it by the pallet. But um, some places they'll like you can buy them online and they'll guarantee like there's X amount of value in the pallet,
Hmm.
like brand new. But in this case, she's there physically. So she's, sees a couple items and makes a guess based on the value, but anywhere from a couple hundred to 400 or 500 for a pallet. So
And
I mean, you
just
have to have a little,
bid?
yeah. So it's what's it called? It's a silent bid or whatever. So
Okay.
you just submit your bids, and whoever wins, whoever bid the most. Which there's some downsides to that, obviously, because there's been a couple times where I've bought stuff because they have other stuff aside from pallets of clothing down there. So I've bought some stuff down there. I bought a generator down there, and we bought a clothes washer, stuff like that. You just never know what you're going to get, and you never know if it was really worth the money that you spent. So you just never like. I bought an air compressor and it does not work, so I have to fix the air compressor. But we also bought a washer, a clothes washer. It had a dent on the back, but it was fine. And we spent $100 on it. And it's $1,000 Samsung washer. So
Dang.
you just never know. You never know what you're gonna get. But that clothing thing turned out to. I mean, it was really really cool. My wife's like I said, she's city girl. Fashion is a big thing for her, so she knows the brands. So
Sure.
she can
Yep.
look at a palette and say, oh, I can sell this palette. I can sell this palette. We can make some money on this really fast. We can get the pallet paid off, and then after that, everything's gravy. Um,
Hmm.
so it's worked out really, really well for us.
Just online sales, I'm assuming.
Yep,
Facebook
yep. So she
Marketplace,
sells.
maybe. I don't know.
It's called Poshmark. It's kind of a fashion
Okay.
seller, and then stuff like the Red Wing boots. Like if they hadn't been my size, they would have gone on eBay.
Sure. What's
So
funny is that my wife's got some friends in LA that she does the exact same thing. So she gets all like I don't know how she got it, but like all the gaylords of like stuff that for whatever reason uh Goodwill can't sell. All the rejects of Goodwill.
yeah,
That she gets them all and goes through them and puts them in her little boutique shop in downtown LA and does great. It's pretty crazy.
it's cool. And there's a whole little niche. Like there's a whole little world on YouTube of these people posting, reseller accounts, and I mean that's how they work. And I mean it's funny. I never would have known, never would have guessed. My wife
Right.
loved shopping and loved thrifting, and all of a sudden I don't even remember how she ended up starting it. Honestly, I don't know if she just was like, yeah, I think I can sell this, and away she went into. Like I said, we both have a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit about those things. So she's tried some other things that hadn't worked. And I'm looking at this one and I'm like, a $5 investment to see if you can flip this sold. I mean, we've spent a lot more money on things that didn't work. So like this, there's no
Sure.
downside really, you know? So, and it's quick. I mean, realistically, we get through a pallet in under a month usually. So you can kind of tell most of the stuff, the easy stuff to sell. Some of the stuff sits, but again, we have room, out in the shop for inventory. But it was a big deal. It was a big deal for sure.
Hmm,
So,
that's cool.
and it does. That's honestly, that's the one that's probably the easiest to handle because it doesn't matter when she wants to work on it. I mean, she can buy a pallet and not touch it for 2 months, or she can buy a pallet and the kids are being good and she can get through it and get it listed. So it's pretty flexible with her being a stay-at-home mom that homeschools. So
Right.
yeah.